there. To cover both of those events, we call over to London and are always thankful when John Burns, the London...
The station the South Coast turns to for local news, talk, weather, and sports. WBSM New Bedford, AM 1420, WBSM.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts, Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with Science Advisor Matt Moniz. The silent assassin Matt Costa I think he's working.
I think you may be right.
He chose making money over hanging out with us.
So would I.
Yeah, I don't blame him. We are glad to be here on an early edition here, a primetime edition of Spooky South Coast. This is where we talk about the paranormal each and every Saturday night, but normally we're on at 10 p.m. We're on 10 to midnight, but tonight we get an early night. You get extra sleep because the Red Sox are out on the West Coast. They'll be coming up at 9:20. That'll be the start of the pregame. We'll be here with you all the way until then. And we have joining us tonight in studio our guest, Keith Johnson, who was the first guest on Spooky South Coast so many years ago. What was it, like 22 years ago or 7.5? I think it's 7.5. And this is your first time, though, being a guest on Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com.
Correct, and I'm glad to be here. And it seems strange. I'm actually here, and it's still light out.
I know, it's a little disconcerting.
Dimension, you know?
I feel almost like when we leave here, we should all go like investigate or something, just because we're going to get out so early. But then we're not taking advantage of that opportunity for sleeping. Man, I was here at 6 a.m. this morning, so I could use it. Now, the program, for those of you who have never listened to us before, we talk about the paranormal, the strange, the unusual. We explore all different avenues of it. And what we do is we bring in some cameras, we set them up around the studio, and we broadcast on our website, Spooky TV. On our website, SpookySouthCoast.com. And if you get in there, you can watch the video, see what's going on in the studio. You can hear the WBSM broadcast while you're in there. And you can also join in the chat room with some of our regulars, who I see there's quite a bit of our regulars in there, despite the early period, the early start time here. So they must be neglecting their families and dinner to join us. So thank you for doing that. And I had tweeted out earlier, you can follow us on Twitter at SpookySC. But I tweeted out earlier that if you tuned into Spooky TV, something would be missing. And it's not Matt Costa. We knew he wasn't going to be here. But if you look, I went with a new look. And for those of you who are just listening on the radio and can't look, I'll give you one of these. So I decided to go with the full Walter White for summertime. And so I was actually buzzing my head down earlier because it's hot and it's sticky. And I wanted to get rid of it. And I said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go all the way down to the skin. I haven't shaved my head all the way down since we started doing this program. I used to do it all the time for like 4 or 5 years. This was my look. And so when people met me later on, they were like, hey, you don't look anything like your picture in the newspaper. I don't look anything like my picture in the police station either. That's why I did it. So we could fool everybody. So, you know, just a little bit of a different summer look. It may stay for a while. I may let it grow back. But the good news is I don't have to pay for shampoo for the remainder of the summer, which is funny because I just bought a brand new bottle.
Yeah, you've shed some hair and you've shed some pounds too, haven't you, Matt?
A few.
Yeah.
He
lighter.
Yeah, he lost it because he's running around in the woods chasing zombie targets, getting ready for the apocalypse.
That'll do it.
So, and carrying the heavy artillery, you know, it's kind of like weightlifting at the same time.
Right.
So, actually, when I thought about shaving my head earlier, but I was afraid that people would start to think that I looked like what Moniz looks like when he takes that wig off.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
So, Keith, we're glad that you could join us tonight. Originally, we were going to be joined by Lara Calhoun for a simulcast edition of our show and her show, Resurrection Radio, but two things happened. One, we got moved to this earlier time slot because of the Red Sox, and so that kind of put a crimp in things because she hosts her show at the same time. And two, kind of got nixed from the higher-ups about us simulcasting over an internet radio stream at the same time. So, understandable. But Laura's going to join us in a few weeks to talk about the idea of hiring publicists and PR people for the paranormal. And we'd been planning on talking to you, Keith, for a long time about tonight's topic, but we asked if you could step in and comment, and you graciously were able to do so. But let me get your thoughts before we get into everything else. What do you think about these paranormal talent agencies and being a longtime paranormal investigator and a celebrity within the field? Do you feel that it's a beneficial thing to have somebody else handling all that stuff for you? Because I know you take care of it all yourself.
Yes, yeah. Sandra and I take care of it ourselves, and she's kind of she's my secretary and everything, and I really depend on her for a lot. She takes me by the hand and leads me around. So talent agencies, I suppose it's a good thing. It's just I wonder if it crimps your freedom. You know, like I'm so used to somebody calls me and I'm ready to go, and you want to talk to them, and you talk one-on-one with a client, and you decide when you're going to go. You confer with your team and then just go. If somebody is deciding that for you, then that's kind of crimping your style. To me personally. But I suppose if you're doing like public appearances and everything, it's a whole different story.
And how would you feel about being kind of tied down to one organization? Because you have the freedom right now being independent, both as an investigator, even though you have New England Anomalies Research, you do join other teams in their investigations, and you help out from time to time when people need your services. But in terms of appearances and events and everything, you have the opportunity to go, say, to an Ideal event or to a Beyond Reality event, and you can come to a Legend Trips event, and you have that type of freedom. Is that what you would want to have in terms of the public appearance aspect of things?
I think I'd like the freedom. I think so. Like I think I personally, I love my group. We have a wonderful group, and we're part Lighthouse Paranormal and Searchlight Paranormal teamed up with us as well, and it's just so good that way that we have the freedom and it doesn't crimp our style, and they also have their separate investigations as well, and nobody steps on each other's toes, and I kind of like the freedom of that because I'm an old prairie dog, so I started way back when. So
see how easy it is, folks, when there's no ego involved, when you're not trying to outdo the other paranormal team in town. It makes things a lot easier, and people can get along a lot better. So we'll talk about that coming up in a couple of weeks with Lara, because she does run Resurrection Talent, and she does a good job in doing so. So I just really want to get to the heart of the matter about
I'm sure
meeting
she
these
does
things.
a wonderful job. I'm sure she does.
And she does a good job of raising awareness for a lot of her clients when people might not be aware of who they are. So we'll talk about that on the 20th. And then next week we're going to be back here at a special time again. We'll be here 7 to 9:20 again. We'll be joined by David Weatherly to talk for the first time about black-eyed kids. Moniz, I know you guys have covered this on 30-odd minutes, and I'm sure that you've heard reports of black-eyed kids being an investigator. And this is one of those topics that is probably number one most requested from, I should say number two behind Amityville, from all of our listeners. They want to talk about black-eyed kids. So if you happen to run into any between now and next week, when they knock on the door and say, "Can we come in?" Let them come in. Let them possess your soul or whatever it is they're going to do. Just make sure you get them to come in Saturday night.
See, that's the weird part. It's trying to discern which avenue or area of the paranormal they belong in, because there's been a number of reports in UFO cases. So it's one of these pieces of the phenomena that straddles a number of different, avenues.
In reading the book, Black-Eyed Kids by David Weatherly, I'm currently of the mindset that these are just the current incarnation of whatever Indrid Cold was back in the 60s. You know what I mean? So whatever that type of phenomena was, this is the modern day version of it. And that could be boogeymen, that could be fairies, that could be all kinds of different things.
The archetype.
Yes. So we'll talk about all that. I'm pretty excited about that, but I'm really excited about tonight's topic, Keith, because we've been trying to get you back on the show for a long time, but our booker, Chris Balzano, kept ignoring when we told you, Keith wants to come on. Yeah. No,
I wish he was here tonight. That would be cool,
Well, he can join in if he's listening. I don't know how busy he is tonight. I don't know. I don't see him in the chat room, but if he wants to join in, he certainly can. He knows the numbers to call, and he knows how to get a hold of us. But you had mentioned to me a while back about this case that is kind of the seminal case of your career. Mm-hmm. And it's been the thing that has been probably had the most weight on your career over the last however long it's been since you actually conducted the investigation. Give us kind of a little bit of a setup of what happened and when.
Well, it was my first major in-home investigation, other than my own house and my best friend's house, and that's how we started our paranormal investigation, with our own homes and, of course, legend tripping local cemeteries and things like that. But
would you be kind enough to share a year?
1973. I was 18 years old. And so
Moniz is only pushing you because it's the first time he has somebody older than him that he can pick on. So.
Veterans, right?
Veterans of 1,000 psychic wars.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was 1973, and I belonged to a group called PIRO, Parapsychological Investigation and Research Organization, PIRO. We weren't pyromaniacs, but I mean, it was based out of Rhode Island College, and our chairperson was Donna, and my brother was a member as well. So that's how we started out. We actually started out because we had been into our own version of paranormal investigation at the time, but, everybody thought, oh, you're crazy doing this. Of course, we attended a lecture at Rhode Island College given by Ed and Lorraine Warren, and we met and became lifelong friends with Ed and Lorraine after the lecture, and that's how we met Donna and became members of PIRO at Rhode Island College. So that's how it all started, and we joined our first group. So in 1973, of course, you have to go back a ways. There was no internet, and this stuff was not really, I mean, it was popular when you saw it on TV. People watched the shows, but it wasn't really accepted to actually be doing this. And, of course, you see the college groups now, they're very accepted. But back then, it was not accepted on campus at all. We'd come to our meeting, and somebody would already be in the room using it. We got the room for tonight, and we'd have to go in the noisy lobby, things like that. That's just an example of how accepted it was. So I put an ad in a local paper. I thought I designed it pretty well, put a little border around it, that we do free of charge investigations of things that cannot readily be explained. I thought it would just be ignored, or maybe you'd get a couple of calls. But 3 weeks after I put that ad in, it was answered by a woman named Carolyn Perrin from Burrillville, Rhode Island, in the Harrisville section. And she had moved into an 18th century farmhouse built in 1736 in Harrisville. And she was having what would be called an extreme haunting, some paranormal activity that she was having a tough time explaining and living with. And would we please meet with her and investigate her situation? And we said, yes, we would.
Sorry, that's Chester Cheetah taking calls on our time.
Right. Yeah, we agreed to take her case and listen to her. And, we were, oh, gee, we got a case. So we tried to sound very casual, of course. Yes, and we listened to her. And what she told us was, it was basically beyond belief. It was horrific. Just the history of the house alone, let alone what she'd been going through.
Well, why don't we take a break, and when we come back on the other side, because we're in prime time, so we have to take hard breaks here.
Sure.
So when we come back on the other side, you can tell us about some of the phenomena that was taking place. We'll give Chester Cheetah his say. And throughout the course of the night, if you have any questions or thoughts for Keith, you can give us a call, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. We will be right back with more here on Spooky South Coast on WBSM.
South Coast like AM 1420, WBSM, and WBSM.com.
Cheetos Hotline. This is Chester.
The economy is really bumming me out.
Just sit back, relax, and enjoy those Cheeto snacks. It'll take your mind off it.
I'm feeling better already.
Me too. I'm charging you $24.99 for this call.
What?
Toodaloo.
Take a Cheetos break with Cheetos.
Pick up a bag of Cheetos today at a store near you.
Right now at the Home Depot, Hampton Bay's 52-inch Campbell indoor ceiling fan is just $79.88 during red, white, and blue savings. This beautiful fan comes with a free remote of $40 value and will create a pleasant environment all summer long. Take one for a spin. The Hampton Bay Campbell ceiling fan, just $79.88 for a limited time during red, white, and blue savings. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Valid through July 7th. See store for details.
This is the worst.
Bus ride got you down, sweetie?
Are you a talking Super 8 sign?
Sure am.
How'd you get on the bus?
I'm surprisingly limber. Now let's party.
Can't. Picking up laundry.
Laundry? Pick up some fun. Pow!
Sweet.
Almost as sweet as our great rates. Plus, Super 8 gives you free breakfast and Wi-Fi.
I like free.
Then go book some fun. Go to super8.com to find your super destination. Super 8, destination super. All Super 8 hotels are independently owned and operated.
Hello.
Hey man, you up?
No.
Wake up, I need to talk to you. I think your house is haunted.
Hey, come on, it's 2:30 in the morning.
I can't sleep in here, man. I'm scared.
All right, welcome back to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with science advisor Matt Moniz, and our guest in studio tonight is Keith Johnson. You know him from programs such as Ghost Hunters, Paranormal State, and of course his own show, Ghosts Are Near. And how's that going, Keith?
It's going exceptionally well. Very, very well. We've started doing Skype recently, and we've got to have you guys on again. And you guys are always, always welcome. You know that.
I thought you were looking for higher ratings. What do you want to do with us here?
Every once in a while, you have to go to the bottom of the barrel so that everybody else looks that much better. So, and the Skype thing must be working out great because now you can bring in people from all over the country and all over the world.
Oh, yes. Yep, that is a convenience.
Anybody cool coming up that you can let everybody know about?
Well, our next show is going to be about this very topic,
Oh, wow.
actually. So that's going to be our next topic. So we've done that. We recently did Shannon Sylvia about her new book, and we've been having a bunch of authors on. We recently did a show on legend tripping, so... You know, the topics just keep coming. As you know, it's never ending.
There's always something to talk about.
Yes.
And before we took a break, we were discussing this case, your first big case, and we were about to talk about some of the phenomena that was taking place in this farmhouse. And what type of things was she reporting to you?
Well, it could be such a long story if we told every detail. But essentially, this was their dream house. They had to move in. Carolyn didn't even tell her husband, Roger, that she had put all this money into it. Now, guess what I did today, dear? And so we've got a new farmhouse out in the country. But the previous owner told him, let me give you some advice. Do not sleep with the lights off. That's one piece of advice. Well, as soon as they came, because they had five...
Pretty ominous when you're buying a house.
Exactly. They had 5 young daughters. And as soon as they moved in, the young daughters said, who's that man? Who's that man? There's a man on the staircase looking at us. And they started seeing the spirit. And the kids affectionately named him Manny. They didn't know his name, but he was a man, so they called him Manny. And but then some more sinister things started happening. Carolyn seemed to be targeted. It wasn't so nice to her. One day in front of witnesses, a coat hanger leapt off the coat rack and began whacking her on the head, kind of letting her know she's not welcome. And she did get some serious bruises from that. One day she was cutting an orange, slicing an orange, and it started bleeding. And blood started actually gushing out of it, going all over her toes, all over, and she just spaced out. She went into a phantasmagoric state. She just freaked out at that. And... she began getting welts and bruises, and just something did not want her there, and the family was basically very, very terrified. Now, when I met Carolyn, she was a very extremely attractive woman. She looked like a model, very 70ish, with the long dark hair, very slim with the high cheekbones. But I knew something was wrong. The way she was shaking and the dark circles under her eyes, I knew something was very wrong with this attractive woman, but she spoke very coherently, very plainly when she told us the story. And she did feel very, very threatened in her own house. The history was incredible of this house. I know houses like the Borden house, of course, there's some terrible things that happened in there, but the history compared to this house, just one thing after another after another. In 1849, there was a young girl shortly before her 12th birthday named Prudence Arnold. Somebody, a man about 24 years old, had made advances on her. I guess he wanted to marry her for her money. She refused, and he proceeded to slice her head off.
Ooh.
And she was almost completely decapitated. There was just a flap of skin holding her head on. And then I guess when he realized what he'd done, he stole $2 from her. And when he realized what he'd done, he came to his senses. He tried to kill himself, but the straight razor was too dull, and he didn't wind up killing himself. He So he was apprehended. There was a man in 1883, Mr. John Arnold, who committed suicide by drinking horse liniment. There was in 1903, there was a man named Jarvis Smith, who was a lawyer, who for some reason was on his way to the house and stopped in the little garret outside of the house and froze to death. There was another Edwin Arnold was on his way home from Slatersville. He got disoriented, lost in the woods, and he died before reaching the house. This is the Arnold Estate, is the actual name of the farmhouse. But I would say most shocking is there was a woman who was babysitting an infant, about 3 weeks old or less. When the parents came home, this infant was writhing in convulsions. They called the doctor. Of course, it took a long time for the doctor to get there. By the time the doctor got there, the infant was dead. They performed an autopsy, found that a sewing needle had been embedded in the base of the baby's skull. I mean, it's difficult to talk about because it was just so terrible. And obviously there was an inquest. The woman, there was not enough, unlike the Lizzie Borden case, there was not enough evidence to even charge her, so it never came to trial. But she never lived down that reputation. Now, her name was Bathsheba. Her name was Bathsheba Sherman. And the rumor in town was she was born near an area called Witch's Hollow. And the rumor was, as rumors go, that she was a satanic witch, had sold her soul to the devil for eternal youth and beauty. Now, this woman was supposedly beyond beautiful. She was captivatingly beautiful and almost too beautiful to be true. And the rumors were that that's why she was so beautiful. She had sold her soul for eternal beauty.
So
and
just being good looking and coming from a place near Witch's Hollow is enough to convict you in the court of public
exactly.
opinion.
And the fact that this infant died, that was the sacrifice. Now, of course, she was never even charged or convicted, but she was never able to live down that reputation, and she did die a cantankerous old woman. She died in 1885, May 25th, 1885, at the age of 71. She died of paralysis, that's what's listed, and supposedly she was just almost calcifying. They had to carry her body out. She was stiff. She could not be moved, and there was also a woman, supposedly Mrs. John Arnold, who was in her 90s and hung herself in the barn out and back. Now, this is where it gets a bit confusing because Bathsheba Sherman and Mrs. John Arnold are sometimes confused with each other. Some people think that Bathsheba's paralysis was a cover-up, and she was the witch who hung herself in the barn out and back. But whatever, somebody did hang themselves in the barn, an older woman, and that's supposedly one of the spirits that haunts this house.
Well, the paralysis could have been stroke.
Yeah, that could be.
That's very common, and you're talking about the person being calcified. A lot of the problems that come with stroke have to do with, buildup of stuff in the blood, and it causes aneurysms.
Well, very possible, because that's what the death certificate said, simply paralysis. So we don't know exactly what the cause of death was, but she was supposedly one of the spirits haunting the house. But anyway, we were called in to investigate because Carolyn, frankly, and her children were having a hard time taking this. Her husband was a bit dubious, but some terrible things had happened in his house. For one thing, the basement door would open at a certain time in the night. They couldn't keep it closed. No matter how many times he locked it, the lock would be opened. And finally, he got tired, and he really secured it, tied a rope on it. There was an explosion at about 3 in the morning, and they found the door had basically been exploded off. And also, there was a terrible happening to the pet rabbits. One of the daughters, there were 5 daughters, one of the daughters had 2 pet rabbits, and she woke up one morning to go feed them, and they were sliced to pieces.
Wow.
Ritualistically sliced, it seemed to be, and and they never found out. I know the family had moved from Cumberland, and supposedly they had some enemies there, but I mean, you'll never know. We'll never know who actually did that. But anyway, it was getting a very, very terrible place to live, but they loved it. I mean, a beautiful, beautiful place, a lot of acreage, a beautiful brook with a bridge right outside.
Any place that's called an estate is somewhere where you want to live.
Exactly. So we were called in to investigate. And again, I was 18, Carl and I, my brother and I were 18 years old at the time. And we did come to investigate it in August of 1973. I had been working my landscaping job all day, and incidentally, I was at the Sprigg Mansion doing the lawn there, the haunted site. So I was thinking of that all day, and praying all day while doing my lawn. But nobody could hear me singing hymns and praying while I'm doing the lawn. So I come home and everybody's all dressed and showered, and they got their nice clothes on, all the rest of the team, and there I am. I've got my hair's down past my shoulders, and I'm like 128 pounds at the time, and I look, I've got covered with dirt, clean dirt, but I've been landscaping, and this is 1973. I go to take my equipment. My equipment is a little cassette recorder and a Polaroid swinger.
Wow.
And my Bible. That's my equipment. So I go to take that, and I get yelled at. No, we don't have time. You come on, everybody's been waiting for you, you jerk. Come on. And so all I could take was my. I just grabbed my Bible. That's all I could take, and still got my work clothes on and everything. But we made the trip to Harrisville, and began our investigation there. As soon as we got on this property, and I know both of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Set foot on that property, you could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You could feel it. It was all I could say. It's like an electric current, but it's drawing from you. Some people say it's positive ions. I don't think that's been proven yet, but it was drawing energy right from us, like a warning. As soon as we get out, and I know Donna, our chairperson, just stiffened, like she had to force herself to take some steps forward. But the family gave us a tour of the house. The children. The 5 girls, they latched right onto me. I guess they thought I looked like David Carradine or something from Kung Fu at the time, because I had the long hair and the dress in my work clothes and everything, and the Emporia India and stuff. So they gave me a tour of the house and told me all what was going on. They took me upstairs and started confiding in me how frightened they were. So this is the first time I ever used religious provocation. I asked them, well, I mean, what is your religious beliefs? Oh, we're Catholic. We're believers. We do go to church. We believe in God. And so I told them, well, what I would advise you, this is what I do when I'm afraid. Try calling upon the name of Jesus. Now, I know it was all in a split second, but it's as if time stood still. It's what the family later described as a bubble, when you feel like you're surrounded in time stands still. As soon as I said the name Jesus, wham!
Ooh.
I'm sorry, but that's
No,
I had to.
That's fine.
It was like that's what.
I get the point. Yeah.
Yeah, a window that would not close because of the heat suddenly was slammed shut. One of the girls was slapped. She had to catch onto the bed. She screamed. She began being slapped. Just pandemonium in the room. But the worst thing was the feeling. That feeling, all of a sudden, it was like somebody switched on something electric. It was like electric current underwater, and you could hardly breathe. It was so thick in there, and the girls were screaming, and I realized, I'm here. I'm 18, but I'm the closest thing to an adult here. I'm responsible. I've got to do something to protect these children. So told them, don't be afraid. I called upon the name of Jesus twice more. The third time I called upon the name of Jesus, it stopped like that. It stopped. I mean, you could feel it, and you could see everybody react like that. It just stopped. It didn't leave the house, but it did leave the room. Everything, and they all looked around. It's gone. It's gone. And they immediately jumped on my lap. They jumped on me, and the rest of our team is downstairs talking with the family. They are so surprised when we come downstairs, and the kids, they're just smothering me with kisses. Oh, Keith, help us, Keith, help us. And they're all excited. Meanwhile, Carl had gone upstairs to use the bathroom upstairs. While I was going, not going to the bathroom, but he was on his way to the bathroom. He was going, I'll clarify that. He was walking through the hallway. He saw this dark, cloudy, grayish mist, and he blinked to make sure he was seeing it, and then it started moving. So it was something that was not stationary. It was moving along the hallway, traveling along, and it was obviously trying to get his attention. And he did get this feeling from that too, as if it was somehow drawing energy. Needless to say, we realized this is the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And before we left that night, the eldest daughter, who was about 15, Andrea Perrin, she came up to me, and we had made friends, and she said, Keith, not that I'm a chicken, but I have to get something in the cellar. Would you mind coming down with me in the cellar, and I have to get some preserves? So we went downstairs, and there's only one light lighting the whole cellar, and a very, very, very creepy cellar. And but then you could feel it starting to manifest again while we're down in the cellar. And she began trembling, and so I took her hand, and we prayed together, and we felt safe. And so that was our first investigation. Of course, there was a lot more to it, but that's essentially, we said, these people are on the level. They're not making it up.
Well, now, folks, if you're listening to this at home, and I know that we hear stories of people experiencing this type of phenomena these days, of course, not with this level of intensity, but we hear these stories from paranormal investigators, and you got to think, this is at a time when Keith and his group were not influenced by television shows or the internet or other things that they've seen. I mean, if they're seeing these things and confronting them with no idea of what they're going up against here. So I want to get into that a little bit more. We're going to take another break here, and when we come back on the other side, I want to talk about what that was like in your mind, being pretty much the first time out there in one of these major investigations. And if anybody has any thoughts or questions, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. You can also jump in the chat room, Spooky TV, at SpookySouthcoast.com, or you can tweet your questions to us at SpookySC. We'll be right back in just a few minutes here on WBSM.
There's no subscription needed to keep in touch with everything happening on the South Coast. Simply go to WBSM.com.
Right now at the Home Depot, get $5 off 1-gallon cans or $20 off 5-gallon buckets of select brands of paint and stains during the Red, White, and Blue Savings Event. With over 3,000 colors to choose from, it's your chance to imagine, then experience an entirely new room. With $5 off gallons and $20 off 5 gallons of select paints and stains during the Red, White, and Blue Savings Event. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Valid through July 7th via mail-in rebate, U.S. only. See store for detail.
Cheetos Hotline. This is Chester.
The economy is really bumming me out.
Just sit back, relax, and enjoy those Cheeto snacks. It'll take your mind off it.
I'm feeling better already.
Me too. I'm charging you $24.99 for this call.
What?
Toodaloo.
Take a Cheetos break with Cheetos.
Pick up a bag of Cheetos today at a store near you.
Welcome to barbecue season. There's only one place to get all the things you need to create fireworks and fun at this year's cookout. Hamburgers, spicy chili dogs, barbecue ribs, and most importantly, Tums for fast heartburn relief. This summer, no matter where the barbecue is, be sure to keep Tums on hand. And now for a limited time only, look for specially marked packs of Tums with a free 8-count roll on display at participating Walmart stores. This summer, America rolls with Tums. Tums. Fast heartburn relief, available at Walmart.
Are you one of the nearly half of all Americans that suffers from some kind of pain due to chronic inflammation? If you're experiencing joint pain, muscle pain, back pain, or painful arthritis, then this important message is for you. Stop suffering and start living a life free from pain with the help of Anatoblock. Anatoblock is a breakthrough supplement that is scientifically proven to quickly and effectively reduce excessive inflammation and get rid of pain. The formula is so effective that we guarantee you will feel a significant difference in just a few days. Pick up your supply of Anatoblock today by visiting any GNC store nationwide or online at gnc.com. Anatoblock is one of GNC's top-selling products and was recently voted to be the best new product innovation by GNC. Even better, join GNC's new member price program and get an instant 20% off today. That's right, 20% off for becoming a GNC VIP. Living a life free from pain is finally here. Get an Anatoblock today at any GNC store nationwide or gnc.com.
Hello.
Hey, man. You up?
No.
Wake up. I need to talk to you. I think your house is haunted.
Hey, come on, it's 2:30 in the morning.
I can't sleep in here, man. I'm scared.
See, I ran the same bumper twice. What's wrong with me? That's what happens. We have more commercial breaks than we have bumpers. So we're in trouble tonight. Welcome back into Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with Matt Moniz, the one, the only, the science advisor. Matt Costa, the silent assassin, is out making money. And maybe he'll bring us some dinner. Who knows? We're here till 9:20 when the Red Sox come on. And our guest tonight is Keith Johnson of New England Anomalies Research and of Ghosts Are Near fame. And you've seen the shows, you've read his books, Paranormal Realities and Paranormal Realities 2. And he is talking with us about one of the most profound cases anybody that I know has ever investigated. If you have any questions during the course of the night, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420 are the numbers if you want to call in and ask a question or share your own thoughts. And I did an interview this past week on another radio station as a guest. And
how'd that go?
Yeah, it went pretty well. It kept me on a lot later than I originally planned. But it turned into one of these things that I'm sure you've had to deal with, Keith, where instead of me talking about the things that I was there to talk about, it turned into everybody calling and sharing their own stories and just kind of having me validate their experiences and asking, if, have you ever heard of that? Does that sound right to you? So I'm sure some people want to call in and share some of their experiences with Keith, and feel free to do so a little bit later on in the program. But we're talking about this case that you investigated in this 18th century farmhouse, and just the insane history of this place. And I got to ask you, with such a dark history, and you must have known all this going into the investigation, right? This was all stuff that you knew ahead of time?
Most of it, but some of it we learned while we were there interviewing the family, and I don't think the family themselves knew everything at the time. They learned it as they were going along. And for example, Carolyn became intensely obsessed with finding the history of this house, and especially about Bathsheba Sherman. She wanted to know more and more about Bathsheba, and she did find, I find Bathsheba fascinating, that she really lived. We're talking about specters and everything, but these people were really flesh and blood people. And Bathsheba in later life did have a court battle. She did wind up going to court, but it was over a property dispute with her brothers over farm property, and she did win the lawsuit. And after her husband, Mr. Sherman, died, Judson Sherman, passed away, she did marry again, a man named Mr. Green, and that was in the last several years of her life. But and supposedly somebody who actually knew her at when he was a young child, he was an elderly man, told Carolyn Perrin she was a tyrant, she was tyrannical, and well, she was a real flesh and blood person too. Was she a witch that sacrificed an infant to the devil for youth and beauty, which didn't turn out as she planned? Nobody actually knew her except this man said she was, very cruel to her farm help.
And sometimes that type of, at least in those days, that type of a reputation,
yeah.
That type of attitude would lead to people accusing you of being a witch.
Yes. And I'm sure she wasn't exactly Auntie M coming out with freshly baked crullers for the farmhands in real life, but that doesn't make her a satanic witch. That makes her a lonely recluse. Right. And, I kind of feel bad that she had this reputation and was never able to vindicate herself.
So there's all this activity that is happened there over the course of its history, and now going into this, a lot of that information.
And we did visit Bathsheba's grave. It's right across from the fire station, the Harrisville fire station.
It sounds to me, just you telling me the history, that there's something in this, on this property maybe, or just kind of a shadow over it that's bringing people in and taking them. It's taking their lives. And were you at all concerned for the safety of yourself and your team going into this?
Yes. I was very, very concerned, especially even when I set foot on the property. I was very concerned. I was praying all the way over, reading the Bible all the way over, and I was very, very concerned for the children. I was very, very concerned for Carolyn. Roger, he was a pretty tough guy. He seemed to be able to take care of himself. But the rest of the family I was very, very, very concerned over. And So we told them we'll be back again next week. We're going to go over things. We're going to help you all we can. In the meantime, it wasn't even a week later. It was a few days later after our initial investigation. Donna, our chairperson, Donna Neufeld, had just come home from school, and she receives this frantic phone call from Carolyn Perrin. She said, Donna, I have to talk to you. Some emergency's happened. Something has happened, a crisis. I have to talk to you. And she says, Carolyn, please calm down. Take a few deep breaths. Tell me what's happened. Well, she said that very morning, it was about 5:15 in the morning, and just getting light out. She woke up and knew something was wrong in the room. She smelled, it was just filled with the stench of decaying flesh, just overpowering. She looks over in the bureau, and there's something almost like a firework, like a sparkler going off on her dresser, then it goes out. But there's nothing there. And she tried to wake up her husband, because her husband's like dead. He won't move at all. She's banging him. She's pushing him. And then she turns over, and what she sees, it's almost beyond description. There's this, what looks like a woman, but is obviously not human. It's something in human form, wearing a Victorian dress. It's floating a few inches off the floor. Instead of hands, it's just got broken twigs of bone coming out of the fringe, and the face is nondescript. It's almost described like a mass of cobwebs or a hornet's nest with very, very indistinct features, and it's looking down at her. The strange thing is the head is not upright. It's hanging onto the shoulder. It's just balancing onto the shoulder as if the neck's broken, and the stench of Carolyn can hardly breathe, and she's panicking, trying to get away from, and desperately trying to wake her husband, who won't move. And it's chanting something. It's just chanting this maniacal phrase. And so Don asked, "Well, can you remember what it said?" And I wrote it down. She said, "Excuse me, Don, I'm just shaking so much. My hands are trembling." I wrote down what I could remember. And, of course, what was Carolyn's greatest fear living in an 18th century farmhouse? Fire. Mm-hmm. She was deathly afraid of the house catching on fire, so that's what it was talking about. And it was doing something in verse, something that sounded like some macabre witch's chant. I'll drive you mad with fiery brooms. I'll drive you mad with death and gloom. I'll drive you out, but 'twill be too late, for you'll be dead. And 'twas mistress here before, 'twill be mistress again. And by the time it disappeared, Carolyn was about ready to just fall out the bed and pass out. When it did leave the room, she desperately tried to wake her husband. Her husband did wake up, and he was just covered with scratches all over his back, bleeding. He didn't feel them at the time, but he woke up, "What's going on?" I'm bleeding. And hence, that's why she was in such a state, and said, "Donna," and she was crying hysterically, "I can't take it anymore. Please, you've got to help me. You've got to do something to help me. I can't live like this. We've sunk all our life into this house. I don't want to leave, but we can't live like this." So Donna said, "All right, Carolyn, just try to calm down. I have friends named Ed and Lorraine Warren. They've been doing this for many years. They're good friends of ours. They live in Monroe, Connecticut. As soon as I get off the phone with you, I'm going to call them." And she did call them as soon as she got off the phone with Carolyn, and that's how Ed and Lorraine Warren did become involved with the case. They agreed to, and they did drive down from Monroe, Connecticut, and became that. They got involved that very weekend with the case.
Wow. So, I mean, that's to have somebody call with that type of a report, and it's gone beyond just being an intense haunting to now it's physically accosting those that live there.
Yes.
Now it's a safety concern, and now it's a threat.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure at the time, I mean, and Donna, the case manager, is probably a little bit more seasoned in this, but as an 18-year-old kid, I mean, you must be wondering about how to protect these people and how to stop what's happening to them.
Right. That was our main concern, not just do research. We've got to stop this. Mm-hmm. Whatever research we do, we've got to stop this. This is up to us. And that's why we didn't just charge it in there. We're going to take care of the whole thing. We decided to network, and, of course, that's what I advise people to do when they ask my advice today. I said there's nothing wrong with asking people's advice who have been in the field longer than you have, because that's what I did when I first started. And I'm sure both of you know most hauntings are not this extreme.
No,
Most of this,
not at
this
all.
is a rare exception. I mean, this is the, this is the jaws of the paranormal. It's like this takes the cake.
Well, before we get into Ed and Lorraine getting involved with the case, at this point in time, with what had been happening, what was going through your mind as a possible? That's probably not. I want to turn your mic down there so you can let those expletives fly. But when you're at this point in the case, what is your thought process? What are you thinking that this could be? Are you thinking that this is kind of what you signed up for, and that every case is going to be like this, or do you kind of know that you're dealing with something very dark and powerful?
I thought it was very unusual. I thought to me, this was a demonic case.
Mm-hmm.
I did not think I was dealing with Bathsheba Sherman in that room when that spirit began manifesting.
But it seemed like it was pretending to be her.
Yes. My theory was it may have been an attachment. It probably was a spirit that had oppressed Bathsheba Sherman in life. It had probably oppressed and been attached to Mrs. John Arnold in life. Perhaps it influenced Mrs. John Arnold's suicide. We don't know. We'll never know. But that was my theory. But I thought, yeah, this is unusual. It's being thrown at me. But this is, this just happens to be my first major case, and these are few and far between. But maybe if I hook up with Ed Warren, there'll be more of these cases.
Well, let's take our final break of the hour. When we come back, we'll talk about the Warrens' involvement in this case, and to me, it just, I couldn't imagine, this being one of your first cases out, just going back into it. I mean, you can just tell that this was your calling in life, and that you were kind of meant to go up against this. So we'll talk about all that and more in just a few minutes with our guest, Keith Johnson. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more here on WBSM, Spooky South Coast.
Specials at CarQuest Auto Parts. Get 5 quarts of Pennzoil conventional motor oil and a CarQuest red oil filter for just $19.99. Upgrade to Pennzoil high mileage oil and a CarQuest red oil filter for $22.99. Or 5 quarts of Pennzoil platinum full synthetic oil and a Bosch premium plus oil filter for $32.99. Now through August 31st at participating CarQuest Auto Parts locations. Or visit CarQuest.com.
Roll in to CarQuest and roll on.
Welcome to barbecue season. There's only one place to get all the things you need to create fireworks and fun at this year's cookout. Hamburgers, spicy chili dogs, barbecue ribs, and most importantly, Tums for fast heartburn relief. This summer, no matter where the barbecue is, be sure to keep Tums on hand. And now for a limited time only, look for specially marked packs of Tums with a free 8-count roll on display at participating Walmart stores. This summer, America rolls with Tums. Tums. Fast heartburn relief, available at Walmart.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. With one phone call, you'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information. It's a free service, so call now.
Call now, 800-460-3580, 800-460-3580.
Psst. Hey, over here.
What?
Right here, on the side of the house.
Who said that?
Look down. I'm right at your feet.
Wait, the basketball?
Yes, the basketball. Right down here, where the kids left me a long time ago. Man, you know how lonely it is being a ball and not being able to bounce or roll?
Excuse me?
Remember when you got me for the kids? You said, now kids, you have no excuse not to go outside and play.
Uh-huh.
Wow. I'll miss flying through the air and hearing the shouts of joy when I swish through the basket. What do you say? Could you give me a little air and remind the kids of how fun I still am?
Okay. Oh, wow. You are flat.
Easy, I'm ticklish. Let's get bouncing.
As Native American parents and caregivers, our encouragement to healthy lifestyles for our kids is helping them get outside and play. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov/Indian Country. Brought to you by USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
It blew books off shelves from 20 feet away and scared the socks off some poor librarian.
Turn on all your lights, lock the doors, and pull down the shades. Spooky South Coast is back.
This looks extraordinarily bad.
Welcome back into Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with Matt Moniz. And our guest tonight is Keith Johnson. And in a few minutes here, we'll have to take a break for the news. And on the other side, we'll get into more of the discussion about this case. And it's just already, it's making me think I'm not going to sleep well tonight. You know, and it's if I heard this case from any other paranormal investigator, I'd be like, you know what? That just sounds a little bit too fantastical for me to believe. But Keith is somebody that we've known since day one, for as long as we've been doing the show. He was our first guest, and he's been somebody who's been a mentor to us all along. So, and I know absolutely that if he's telling us this stuff happened, folks, it happened. So keep that in mind throughout the course of the discussion. And we'll talk more about that, and we'll get involved with the Warren side of the story. Of course, they're coming up in the new film, The Conjuring. And what great casting, by the way, I noticed from just from the trailers.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like they found the perfect, although it's kind of weird that Norman Bates' mother from Bates Motel is playing Lorraine Warren. I'm looking at it and be like, here you got the basis for Psycho versus, you know, one of the nicest ladies in the paranormal.
Yeah, but they got the style of dress down perfectly, the tartan dress and everything.
It looks incredible. I can't wait to see it. And we might be, I can't let the cat out of the bag here too much, but we may be having the director of Insidious and The Conjuring, the same guy, James Wan, in a future interview here on Spooky South Coast. So we're working on making that happen. And something that we do definitely have planned for the future is our USS Salem Legend Trips event. It's called Dead in the Water. It's happening August 31st. Your chance to investigate the USS Salem with Jeff Belanger and the Spooky crew. We're going to be there pretty much for the entire night. You know, we'll do our usual Legend Trips format. We'll have dinner. We'll have lectures. We'll have hours of guided investigation throughout the ship. Some of the stories that have been coming out of the ship over the years are incredible. We have not just reported EVP and creepy experiences and object moving, but this ship is full of reports of apparitions. And that's something that is not really been the case with a lot of our Legend Trips events. So this might be our first chance of actually catching something on video. So it's going to be really exciting for us as investigators, but also for you as well. If you want to join us, you can get your tickets from legendtrips.com. We have some still available, although they've only been open for the public for about a week now. And already through our pre-sale for our legendtrips.com email list subscribers and through the public pre-sale of just 1 week, we're already more than a quarter of the way filled to our capacity. So, and we've got a couple of months left for people to buy tickets. So if you want to go to this, you have to get your tickets early. And we're working on some things here. You might be able to spend the night on the ship. Well, not you, Moniz, because people want to sleep. But other people could spend the night on the ship. And of course, we're also working on getting our usual hotel deals. We'll find a local hotel where we can get a good rate for those who don't want to sleep on the ship and who have to travel. And you'll also have your opportunity to get spirit medium readings from Tiffany Rice and Stephanie Burke as well. So it's going to be just a phenomenal event. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go check it out ahead of time because I've never been there. I heard that it probably will get a little warm on an August night.
Yeah.
In this giant heavy class cruiser ship, but we'll be so excited to be in there that I don't think it'll even make a difference. So legendtrips.com is the website if you want to get your tickets. Right now, we're going to take a break from the news, and then we will be back with more here on Spooky South Coast.
The South Coast turns to for local news, talk, weather, and sports. WBSM New Bedford, AM 1420, WBSM.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson.
A tragic day for SFO, for San Francisco, for everyone.
San Francisco Airport Director John Martin, it was a fatal plane crash, a crash that burned up most of the cabin, but many people walked away. Of 307 on board, at least 2 people are dead, 130 injured, says San Francisco Fire Chief Joanne Hayes-White this past hour, with the latest official numbers from the Asiana Airlines flight from Seoul, whose tail section apparently smashed into the edge of the runway on landing about 5 hours ago.
190 of the passengers pretty much were self-evacuated or with assistance from emergency responders over here to San Francisco, and they were categorized as green, which means minor injuries.
This eyewitness.
It didn't manage to straighten out before hitting the runway, so the tail of the plane hit the runway,
and it was, it cartwheeled and spun, and the tail broke off, and it looked like the plane had completely broken apart.
ABC News aviation consultant John Nance.
They might have tried to push the throttles up at, let's say, 500 feet. You're not supposed to have them at idle below that, and the engines did not come up. Now, that's wild speculation, but there has to be a reason for them to have that deck angle so high, and they were trying to get the last remaining flight out of the airplane.
The FBI says so far there's no indication that terrorism was involved. Federal safety investigators are on their way to the airport crash site in San Francisco. A former big-name diplomat's been named interim prime minister in Egypt, the pro-reform leader Mohammed al-Baradei. According to an opposition spokesman, al-Baradei led the opposition to former President Hosni Mubarak, his Nobel Peace Prize winner and a former director of the UN nuclear watchdog. Phoenix police say a man acknowledges that he punched and then stabbed his mom and then tried to behead her at a local sushi and steakhouse. Michael Hansen faces charges and is held on $250,000 bail. He allegedly told police detectives the attack stemmed from pornographic pictures of him. You're listening to ABC News.
You may have noticed doctors and nurses using the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer in hospitals and clinics. That's because it gives a fast, accurate reading with just a gentle forehead scan, backed by more than 40 published medical studies. It's a huge time saver, which makes it a great money saver too. Now, what you may not have noticed is that doctors and nurses use the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer at home too, for all the same reasons. So why not get one for your home? Pick one up today at Walgreens and other fine retailers.
Kim is in a rush and a large tree has fallen on her car. She needs to file a claim. Should she A, strap her claim forms to a caffeinated falcon, or B, file her claim on Geico.com? The correct answer is B. It's easy to quickly file a claim on Geico.com and set up an appointment with an adjuster. The caffeinated falcon would probably get disoriented and deliver the claim to some burger joint. Geico.com is much more efficient and doesn't have dangerous talons.
Geico. Wherever, whenever. Just a click away with our free mobile app.
You know, this really sounded like something scary.
80 cars carrying gasoline derailed, and subsequent explosions caused quite a large fire.
Sheriff's Office dispatcher Stan Wheeler as the entire community of Lac-Mégantic, Quebec, was evacuated early this morning after a huge fire broke out in the middle of town. This after a train carrying crude oil derailed in the lakeside town close to the border with Maine and Vermont. One person is dead, several others missing, and a large part of the downtown destroyed. NSA secrets leaker Edward Snowden has another option. This is Bolivia's president, Evo Morales, saying we're going to give asylum if he asks to this American who's being pursued by his countrymen. We do not have any fear. Snowden is believed still at a Moscow airport. Nicaragua and Venezuela have also offered to give refuge to the ex-NSA contractor. Ohio State coach Urban Meyer says it is wrong and irresponsible to connect him or his former Florida staff to the murder charge facing Aaron Hernandez. Meyer texted the Columbus Dispatch and Gainesville Sun newspapers that he got word about an accusation of multiple failed drug tests covered up at the university or the coaching staff. Meyer said that's absolutely not true. Hernandez played 3 years under Meyer at Florida. The ex-New England Patriot is charged in the shooting death of semi-pro football player Odin Lloyd. He has pled not guilty. This is ABC News.
When you want to know what the best product is, you ask an expert. So if you want to know why the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer is the best for you and your family, just ask doctors and nurses why they use it at work and at home, and they'll tell you. The Exergen temporal scanner thermometer gives a fast, accurate reading with just a gentle forehead scan and is backed by more than 40 published medical studies. Those all add up to peace of mind that your family is using the best and a great value for the money. Get yours today at Rite Aid and other fine retailers.
Chuck Severson, ABC News.
I'm Tiffany. I have some tips for you on how to quit smoking like I did. First, I did some reading about it. I found a lot of great advice on how to quit smoking and picked out the ways I thought would work best for me. I started by setting a quit date. Then I threw out my ashtrays, lighters, and matches. I did other things too, like exercising more, and it worked. But I'd still get cravings, especially on long car rides. To help me with that, I put a picture of my mother in my car. She died of lung cancer from smoking cigarettes when I was only 16. Now I have a 16-year-old daughter. That picture of my mother reminds me that I don't want to miss all the things my daughter is going to do in her life, including turning 17.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
The station the South Coast turns to for local news, talk, weather, and sports. WBSM New Bedford, AM 1420, WBSM.
Welcome to Spooky South Coast. Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts, Tim Weisberg and Matt Boston.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with science advisor Matt Moniz. And our guest tonight is Keith Johnson. We are broadcasting live both here on WBSM and on Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com. So if you want to tune in and check out what is going on in the studio, you can do so. You can also jump in the chat room with a lot of our friends who are in there. The folks who are usually there with us late on Saturday nights, because we're normally on 10 to midnight as we talk about the paranormal each and every week. But tonight we're on a special primetime show because at 9:20 will be the Red Sox pregame show, and then the Sox will be taking on the Los Angeles Angels at 9:20. So I'm at 10 o'clock. So the pregame's at 9:20. The game starts a little bit after 10. And this will be the format next week as well. We'll be back here at this early time as well, and we'll get a couple of weeks where we get to sleep in, and we get a little extra sleep, and then we'll go back to Saturday nights from 10 to midnight, which is, that's our comfort zone. I'm glad it's going to be dark by the time we leave here, because I don't know, my mind is just blown when we leave here in the daytime after doing Spooky South Coast. Although after tonight's topic that we're discussing, I think I'd rather be leaving in the daytime, because this case is definitely sending shivers up my spine. We're talking about the first major case that Keith investigated in his long and illustrious career, and we were talking off air, Keith, that this is actually the case that the upcoming film The Conjuring is based on. I was under the impression that was kind of some of the greatest hits of the Warrens kind of all put together into one case to make it seem very intense for a movie, but it seems like this is all that you need just from this case in order to have a successful horror film.
Oh, exactly. And this is supposed to be possibly the major horror film of the decade. It's supposed to be fantastic. It's very above average, your average horror film. It's supposed to be very, very spectacular, and it is based on true events. It is the true case of Harrisville.
And if you're going to invoke the name of Ed and Lorraine Warren in the film, then you have to live up to their names and their work, and you can't just turn out one of these run-of-the-mill horror movie pieces of crap here. You have to have something that is impactful and something that will be something people will remember. Otherwise, I mean, you can kind of tell because, Lorraine wouldn't have signed off on it if it wasn't going to be something of quality, and they would have just had, fake names made up for them, like in the Amityville sequel.
Oh, yeah, things like that. Right.
So, and you haven't had a chance to see the film yet, but I'm assuming that you've seen some of the trailers and some of the stuff online, and it definitely looks like, when I'm seeing some of these clips in the film, I'm thinking to myself, gee, that's something that somebody should have put in a horror movie a long time ago. You see like the creepy doll turning around and things like that. And I'm like, now that's the kind of stuff that will scare people, not even realizing that half the stuff that I'm seeing in the trailer is based on really true events.
Yeah, and it's, it's kind of, I can't help being nostalgic, excited, but nostalgic, because it was my first major in-home case, and it's exactly 4 decades ago. It's like reliving the situation again, and the follow-up to what we investigated, Ed and Lorraine did become involved. They were right down there that weekend, and unfortunately I had to work my landscaping job that day because they did come in the daytime, but my brother Carl, and Donna, our chairperson, Donna Neufeld, did join Ed and Lorraine at the house, and I guess Lorraine was shocked when she walked in, what she picked up on there. She said, how can you people possibly be living in this? I don't understand how you could possibly, with what's going on here, how you could survive. you poor people. And of course, they investigated and picked up on, Lorraine being clairvoyant, picked up on a lot of information and a lot of activity, a lot of negative activity that, and she did confirm that it was centered in on Carolyn, and it was extremely, extremely dangerous. Lorraine told them, you should not be even sleeping in your bedrooms. You should be sleeping out on the porch for now, while the warm weather is available to you. And Carl and Donna did spend the day there, but Ed and Lorraine advised them, this is much too dangerous for you to be here. You can't be here after dark. You shouldn't be here. It's just too dangerous. So that ended our group's involvement with the case for that time. Plus, what also did not make it easy for us, somehow a rival group at Rhode Island College found out about our investigation, and this happened even back then in the 70s. They came there and knocked on the door, and, oh, you're with Pyro. No, ma'am, we're not with Pyro, but we do what they do, except better, and we'd like to take over your case, and so they started trashing us, and they just finally the Mr. Parent said that's it, no more college groups doing that, backbiting each other and stuff like that, but.
And they didn't even have Facebook back then.
Right. They didn't even have Facebook.
To trash each other on.
And so a lot of what happened I learned about years afterwards. But, of course, then I went on with my career. My brother and I going through various organizations, starting our own, and my career with TAPS and then with NEAR and what have you. And Sandra and I did come back to that house and investigate years later, and we did get evidence. No, it was when Sandra and I came back with our own organization, NEAR, New England Anomalies Research. There was not you didn't get that feeling of oppression like we did with Pyro originally. There was a nice elderly couple living there, and very, very hospitable to us, and allowed us to investigate. And of course, there was no need for a religious provocation or anything like that. And we did a couple of our shows. We did a show actually in their house for Ghost Star NEAR, which is available to see online. And we did get some pretty impressive EVPs there. For when the homeowner was telling Sandra, I wish I had more to tell you. We played the tape back. On the end of his voice, you hear an EVP saying, "Tell her," and there was one that I guess it didn't appreciate Carl's sense of humor, and one of the investigators got his EMF recorder, and Carl says, "Oh, that's just one of our investigators. He's relieving himself over there." And you hear the voice say, "What? Don't lie." It's like it's really, really got personality. It's got its own personality.
And it seems, playful and interested, not like what was there before.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
I was going to say, do you think the presence of all the children back in the day could have been what gave it such?
I think it was. I think it was exactly that. I think it was the presence of the family there, the children, and supposedly it coveted the children. Whatever spirit was dominant there coveted the children, and Lorraine did verify that. It was after Carolyn to basically snuff her out of the way, to get her out of the way, and covet the children and become the mistress of the house. And of course, the elderly couple and that are there now present no threat at all.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just, and people are, of course, a lot of people you see on message boards, "Oh, I want to go there. I'm skeptical." Well, that doesn't mean they're going to go there and see what they see in the movie.
Right.
These things, like, it'll skip generations. It has to be the right, or however you want to phrase it, the wrong situation of a family moving in.
It's a perfect storm either way.
Exactly. And from what I understand, the Warrens did come back with clergy, and there was a full blessing that took place there. One clergyman walked through the house, and he said, "I'm sorry, this place cannot be cleansed. I'm sorry.
Wow.
It just cannot." There was a seance conducted there. Lorraine did bring in another psychic, and there was a seance that went horribly wrong. It just opened up doors, and well-intentioned, but it opened up doors for the Bathsheba spirit, whatever you want to refer to it as, and it just chaos. And Carolyn was even more attacked. The family did live there for 10 years. They lived there for 10 years and somehow survived. mainly victimized was Carolyn. And as much as she loved that house, she was, I would say she was very, very close to either death or possession, full possession. She was taking on the spirit's persona. And finally she said to her husband, if I don't leave here, I love this place, but if I don't leave, I won't survive another winter here. So they did move out after 10 years there. Meanwhile, I had always kept this close to me, this case. I always wanted to write about it. I had written a short story about it for a website, but when my first book, I wrote my first book, Paranormal Realities, I had to write about this, about my experiences. I did not include the family's last name at the time because, I didn't want them winding up hating me if they ever read it. And I changed, like the spirit Manny, I changed it into Eric and everything. I didn't have it exact, but then, of course, I did decide, well, Facebook's out, I'm going to try to contact the family. I contacted Andrea, and she got back to me, and it was like a reunion, a wonderful, it was like brother and sister getting together again. It's like, it's like, where have you been all these years?
Right.
And we hooked up. And
you definitely left an impression. Yeah.
Exactly. And when she met Sandra, it was like a long-lost sister-in-law, and it's just... And connected with Roger, her father, and it was just like, now we're like family. It's like a family reunited, and that was a beautiful conclusion to that part of the story. And now, of course, the Conjuring is coming out, telling the story. But I have to say, if Donna Neufeld had not made that call to the Warrens, well, before Amityville, there was Harrisville, and before Ed and Lorraine were in Harrisville, there was Pyro. It all like step by step. If Donna had not made that call to Ed and Lorraine Warren when she did, there would be no Conjuring today. So,
and maybe, this shaped who you were as an investigator, I'm sure, and to come out of the gate as a young investigator and have to go up something like this. And I'm sure Ed and Lorraine Warren, it probably had an effect on them and their future investigations as well. So think of all the good that had been done for people later on in succession of this case.
Exactly.
So it touched many lives along the way. Is there a Keith Johnson character in the movie? Do they have you like landscaping so you couldn't make it while they were there?
No. As far as I know, there is not. But
sorry,
there's a young college student. You can pretend his name's Keith. I guess.
I was gonna say it's only a matter of time before somebody makes a film about Keith and Carl and Sandra and just all of your crazy adventures in the paranormal, because I'm sure that you have some stories that could be full-fledged horror movies as well.
Is there going to be a scene where we bless the spooky Southcoast studio?
There might be a scene where we have to do that again soon.
Yeah.
How long? What's the expiration date on those?
But it's everything. Obviously there are no accidents. Everything happens for a reason. What I didn't know around the time I contacted Andrea Perrin was that she was about to finish her first book on her family story about living in that house. She's writing a trilogy called House of Darkness, House of Light. Volume 1 is out, and Volume 2 has just been published as well.
Wow.
And she's working on Volume 3. It's a labor of love for her. And if you want to know every detail of this story from beginning to end, the movie, of course, is very detailed, but it is a 2-hour movie. You want to know every detail that this family experienced from the time just before they moved in till the present day, the family that lives there now. That's the 3 volumes, House of Darkness, House of Light by Andrea Perrin.
But don't forget, too, it is a Hollywood movie, too, so they're going to take some liberties. And as much as they're going to leave some stuff out, they're going to add some stuff in. So
of course.
To get the true unfiltered story, you should pick up these books. And people can get them from Amazon, I assume? Or?
Yes, or directly from Andrea, either way.
All right, so definitely check that out. We'll get a link up for you on SpookySouthcoast.com as well. Why don't we take a break? When we come back, we'll talk more about this case. I want to look at the side of things where, because to me, I don't have anywhere the wealth of experience that you guys have investigating demonic cases, but it just, from the minute you started describing some of the phenomena that was going on, I sounded like Jeff Belanger looking at a photograph. Demon. That's just immediately what I was thinking. So we'll get into all that coming up in just a few minutes. Also, your calls, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. I know we were kind of ignoring some of the lights when people were calling in before, but we were having Keith get the story out so that we could hear all the details. So if you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. We'll be right back with more here on Spooky South Coast on WBSM.
Always on air, always online, always free. AM 1420 WBSM.
Cheetos Hotline. This is Chester.
The economy is really bumming me out.
Just sit back, relax, and enjoy those Cheetos snacks. It'll take your mind off it.
I'm feeling better already.
Me too. I'm charging you $24.99 for this call.
What?
Doo-doo.
Take a Cheetos break with Cheetos.
Pick up a bag of Cheetos today at a store near you.
Never bet on a horse named Tripod. Never go cliff diving with a guy named Cliff. It's just too many cliffs. Never play leapfrog with a unicorn. And never trust a car that hasn't been trusted to Midas. Save on brakes, tires, maintenance, and total car care. For a car you can depend on long after the warranty expires. You deserve the Midas touch. Get a comprehensive oil change, tire rotation, and visual brake check for $21.99. Up to 5 quarts conventional oil. Shop fees extra. Most vehicles at participating Midas.
Your station for the South Coast. AM 1420 WBSM.
All right, welcome back into Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with science advisor Matt Moniz. And our guest tonight is Keith Johnson. You can watch us on Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com if you want to see what's going on in the studio. We'll also take your calls. If you have any thoughts or questions for Keith or about this case, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. And we mentioned before the break that, as I said, I was thinking demon immediately when you started describing even just the history of what was going on in this location. And you mentioned how this figure had appeared to Carolyn, and its face was unrecognizable, and it was chanting, and it was wearing a Victorian dress. So I'm thinking in my mind, okay, that begins the infestation period where it tries to pretend to be something else. Yes. And then you're talking about how she's taking on its characteristics. Now we're getting into oppression and working our way into possession here. Do you feel that had there not been intervention, that was the goal of whatever was there, was full-fledged possession of somebody in that house?
I think the goal was full-fledged possession or the ultimate termination of Carolyn, and then systematically taking over the rest of the family. It seemed to have, I don't know if it was, it may have been a succubus spirit that was, because it did seem to have quite an attraction for Roger Perrin. It was, it did that time make his back a bloody mess, but otherwise it seemed to fondly caress him and seemed to really have quite an attraction for Roger, and was insanely jealous of Carolyn. And I did believe it to be a demonic spirit. And of course, when I do the full, Sandra and I go and do the full house blessing now, I come prepared with the blessed oil and the holy water and everything. I didn't have any of that when I came there that time. I had never done a house blessing before, but what did I do? I found the children's sidewalk chalk in their bedroom and made the sign of the cross on the doors and windows. But in retrospect, that when that's done in faith, that is just as effective as if doing it with the whole 9 yards of holy water. And if something's done in faith, that is just as effective. You're taking elements, you're taking inanimate objects, and it's the faith behind what you're doing.
And we've talked in the past about the gift of discernment,
yes,
and being able to tell when you're dealing with something that's just a nasty human spirit, right, and something that's truly demonic.
Right.
And is this something that you felt you had back then, or were you still kind of feeling your way through this?
Well, it was. I wouldn't say it was the so much the spiritual gift of discernment as that it was unmistakable that it was just coming at us. There was no mistake. There was no mistake that was. I'm sure if you had been there, you would have known. Matt definitely would have known. I know Matt's sensitive, but there was no mistake. But this was coming at it, and it does obviously it does affect people. In a subsequent meeting of Pyro, our chairperson Donna said, "Look, I just want to let you know that I'm remaining your chairperson, and I will go on field trips and lectures. But as far as cases go, this is it.
Wow.
I've had my fill. This is it."
I mean, and even though you're a spiritually sound person and you have your faith and Carl has his faith, you guys are pretty grounded in that. Still, you're just a bunch of college kids here.
Oh yeah.
And you're trying to go up against something that you don't quite understand just yet.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine just. It was almost like that was an immediate crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
You could have gone one way, which would have probably kept you from being able to investigate ever again, but you went the other way, and it seemed to strengthen and solidify it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how does it work for you now, though? Are you able, when you first get involved in the case, can you kind of tell right away if you're dealing with something demonic, or is it, again, through the process of analyzing the phenomena and what's been going on?
It's usually the process of analysis. It really is. You have to analysis. And plus, you get so much, you deal with mental illness so much, and you see that over and over again. And obviously, I do a great deal of networking because, we used to have this running joke, we'll just take the near jet, but we had to stop doing that because too many people were taking us seriously. But, it's like, my heart goes out to people when you can't get to them and they have these situations and you wish you could. And was there mental illness in the Harrisville case? Well, definitely, because Carolyn, she was a very sound woman, but I mean, the toll this was taken on this poor individual. I mean, how can anybody go through that?
So it might not have been present at the beginning, but over the course of the duration of the haunting, it became
PTSD.
Right.
People,
exactly.
don't have to necessarily be in quote unquote combat to get PTSD.
Yes, and certainly she has been affected since then. It affects her to this very day. She has a wonderful sense of humor. She's not a morbid person. Her favorite hobby is gardening. She's a wonderful gardener. But every once in a while, there's an attack. There's a feeling, and she knows she's being watched. Andrea knows that, she was, when she's writing the book, one time there was this deep-throated growl behind her. She knows that anybody in this field knows that when you're doing this, you are being watched.
It seems to me then that it's something that, while you said that in subsequent investigations, you felt this presence wasn't there anymore, and that it's still kind of lingering in the background and could be there at any time. So they're encountering it wherever they are now, and you could be encountering it on one of your investigations elsewhere.
Right, exactly.
It seems like now that you've made yourself known to it and you know about it,
right,
that it's going to keep close watch.
And it wasn't completely negative, the experiences in that house. Andrea's sister Cynthia had a very positive angelic experience there. Sometimes it would be positive experiences, but Andrea was only attacked once, and that was fairly recently. That was a few years ago when she came back for a visit, and there was a local journalist from a local publication that was doing a story on the house. And while this journalist was there, her father Roger, with a cameraman, a friend of his, was down the basement when the Bathsheba spirit, or whatever you want to refer to it as, began manifesting, and he felt himself being caressed. And some say you can actually see in the footage, you can see a spirit manifesting. Well, he did feel himself that warm caress. Something was in the room with him, he was touching him. And suddenly, Andrea was upstairs. She wasn't with her father, but she just bolted up, said, "My father's in danger, I have to go see him." And she was slammed against the wall. It took her months for her to recover from that. She was slammed against the wall, and finally she did
psychologically or physically?
Physically.
Wow.
Physically, just slammed right against the wall. The journalist that was there to do a story on this excused herself, left the house, and they never heard from her again. Needless to say, she never completed the story.
But the video footage is available for people to see?
Yes, it is. I believe Andrea has it posted online.
Oh, excellent.
Andrea has a lot of footage online. If you go to Andrea's site, she's very easy to find. Just Google Andrea Perrin, and you will find she has a lot of footage, and she's an excellent narrator.
And just so people can do so, is it Perron?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm going to Google it right now, and we'll get all that information during this break. We're going to take a break. When we come back, if you have any questions or thoughts, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. We'll be right back with more here on Spooky South Coast.
Blogs from your favorite hosts every day at WBSM.com.
Are you one of the nearly half of all Americans that suffers from some kind of pain due to chronic inflammation? If you're experiencing joint pain, muscle pain, back pain, or painful arthritis, then this important message is for you. Stop suffering and start living a life free from pain with the help of Anatoblock. Anatoblock is a breakthrough supplement that is scientifically proven to quickly and effectively reduce excessive inflammation and get rid of pain. The formula is so effective that we guarantee you will feel a significant difference in just a few days. Pick up your supply of Anatoblock today by visiting any GNC store nationwide or online at gnc.com. Anatoblock is one of GNC's top-selling products and was recently voted to be the best new product innovation by GNC. Even better, join GNC's new member price program and get an instant 20% off today. That's right, 20% off for becoming a GNC VIP. Living a life free from pain is finally here. Get an Anatoblock today at any GNC store nationwide or gnc.com.
I have something serious to say. So from this point forward, I'm going to use my serious voice. At Little Caesars, we've always been serious about quality ingredients, making our dough fresh from scratch every day.
Just paranormal researchers. What are you guys? We've been called demonologists, paranormal researchers.
Yes. Little Caesars, when it comes to quality, we're serious.
Pizza, pizza. Your station for the South Coast. AM 1420 WBSM.
What are you guys? We've been called demonologists, paranormal researchers.
They've investigated the Amityville horror and the haunting in Connecticut. On July 19th, their most terrifying case
There's a lady in a dirty nightgown that I see in my dreams.
begins.
Look what she made me do.
The Conjuring, rated R, July 19th.
All right, that is the film that is based on the case that we are talking about tonight with our guest Keith Johnson, Tim Weisberg here, along with science advisor Matt Moniz. That is The Conjuring. It comes out July 19th. We're going to be some of the first people in line for sure. Actually, what I should do, it's being put out by Warner Brothers Pictures, and if I am diligent enough here, I'm going to contact Warner Brothers, and I'm going to see if we can get some tickets to give away here on the show.
Smart idea.
Yeah. The only problem is now that, we're official here at WBSM. We'll have to work with the promotions people to do so. It's not like the old days when we would just do things on our own and submit price sheets afterwards.
You mean management actually pays attention to us now?
Right. It's new management, so we have to behave ourselves and follow all the rules. So we'll see if we can hook that up somehow. I'm sure that we can. And then, of course, there's the possibility that we'll be having James Wan coming on a future edition of the show in a pre-recorded interview through our friend John Tobin. So hopefully, if it all works out, we'll be able to do that, because I would like to find out from somebody who has made films like Insidious and the Saw films. I'd like to see how he handled dealing with the source material and being able to bring it to light, because I know that we've talked about in the past the Dybbuk box case. We had Juliet Snowden and Styles White, the writers of the program, the writers of the film The Possession, and we had them on to talk about the process of taking that original story and making it into a Hollywood movie. And it sounded to me like they took a good story and kind of just used that as a very thin basis for their own horror movie. But with this case, there's so much to go with in actual reality and fact that there's really no need to embellish the story. So if you'd like to call in with any thoughts or comments, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. Let's go to the phones. Good evening. You are on Spooky South Coast with Keith Johnson. How are you? Hi, WBSM. All right, I guess he didn't have anything to say. 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. And we were talking before we took the break about the negative aspects of this case and about it being a demonic entity that was probably at the basis of this. And you had mentioned, Keith, that there was an angelic experience as well. Does that happen a lot in demonic cases? Can you have both sides of good and evil, light and dark, happening in the same investigation?
You can have that. And whenever Sandra and I are on a case such as this, again, this case such as this is very, very rare. But whenever we're on a potentially inhuman spirit case, we always ask for angelic assistance. We always, because we're not just casting out negative energy, we're asking for something to replace it. Because that, you just cast it out, that leaves a void. So we're asking for the presence of an angelic spirit to come and take its place. Because, yes, when you're in this field, you are being watched, but there's the other side, too. You're being guided, too. And we do pray that we're being guided by angelic spirits and that they're sent to protect us and help us. And I think that was very true in this house as well. There were children there, obviously. So it's not just that the family were being hammered away at. There are limits to what the demonic can do, and angelic spirits are more powerful, and they do intercede on people's behalf quite frequently.
I can understand if you don't want to answer this, if it goes in the direction that it might go, but what was the family's home life like before they had moved into this property? How were they as a family going into this? Was everything kind of happy-go-lucky? Were they having some problems, or...?
They were a very, very loving family, exceptionally loving family. And to look at them, they almost like a TV family, if you know what I mean, of the 70s. Mm-hmm. They were very, very attractive family, very, very loving to each other. Not necessarily extremely popular in the community that they came from, because they were individuals. And, if you go outside the realm, you're going to make enemies too. And Carolyn came into this situation being a non-believer. She didn't have any religious beliefs per se. She left a full believer after 10 years.
So it's not the typical situation where we hear sometimes with some family strife and these type of entities will prey upon that.
Right.
It seems like they just decided that it didn't matter who it was that moved in. They were going after them.
Right. And this family was there at you want to say the right time or the wrong time, that they just moved in, and just, horrendous things happened, but very peculiar things too. One time Carolyn was in the barn, and a sickle leapt off the wall and started spiraling down to her, just missed her by inches, things like that. And it's like she didn't even have time to jump aside, just realized what had happened. Another time she was walking through the parlor by the fireplace. All of a sudden she looks over, and there's a different family there, and they're dressed in mid-19th century outfits, and they're just sitting down to dinner. There's a couple of children being unruly. The mother's trying to get them to sit down to eat. Suddenly, there's two young men sitting down to eat. One of them nudges, points to Carolyn.
Oh.
Like, what is that?
So I was going to say, so it's not just a residual after effect.
Like she's the ghost to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's intelligent. And then it just faded out. So I guess for a second, she was haunting another family. At least that's how it seemed.
So there's something very unique about this location. It sounds like there's a very thin veil there between worlds, dimensions, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like it's opened the door for anything to come through.
Yes.
Why would you account to the fact then that maybe nothing this overtly negative has come back to the location over the years? Does it have to do with the fact that it had its time and it had its chance and kind of lost out on that, or maybe it's that some of the light that you brought in has helped keep it at bay over the years?
I think it's dormant because of the blessings and religious intervention, beginning with what I did, but of course it was continued by members of the clergy and everything. I think it's dormant. I also think it's like a volcano, and it could erupt again at any time. There was a family living there. A minister lived there for few years, and he experienced very little, if any, activity. He had a son, I believe was 19 years old at the time. One time his son came home, pulled into the driveway. He reported seeing a very strange elderly woman in his front yard standing there. The strange thing about this woman, she looked very hateful and very bizarre, and she was standing there staring at him, and he got the impression that this woman thought he was the intruder.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't even speak to her. The strange thing about this woman is her head was tilted to one side.
Yeah.
as if she had some kind of cervical problem. He was about to call the police. He looked outside. She was gone. I mean, no elderly person could sprint that fast,
Right.
but that was his...
Especially with something around their neck and head like that.
Exactly.
So do you think that well, obviously that ties into what Carolyn saw, but does it also tie into the young lady who was murdered and had her head cut off? Do you think that is maybe some sort of connection to that?
I think it could be. It's just that it seems to kind of comparable to The Shining. You know, it just feeds off negative and feeds off negative and almost takes on a life of its own. And this house is truly, I guess it could be considered one big portal in a way.
Well, and you use the word dormant to describe the negative side of the activity that takes place there. And you have to ask the question, with the movie coming out and with all the attention that's going to be paid to this case, and I'm sure everybody's going to be reading Andrea's books, and it's going to draw a lot of attention to it and stir up a lot of that stuff again. Do you feel like maybe this activity could respond to that this entity could respond to that attention?
I think it could respond. I don't think people are going to come over and see people flying around, peek in the window, see people flying around the room like they see in the movie. It's going to appear and it's going to manifest when it wants and how it wants.
And we mentioned, of course, that it's, to the locals, they know where this took place. And that it's going to be something that's the target of a lot of people's interest over the next couple of weeks and couple of months. But that people should not go there. They should not bother these people.
Yeah, you have to understand the people that live now, they are such a wonderful couple and nicer people you couldn't imagine. And out of courtesy, they allowed Sandra and our team to come over there, a few times and investigate. And it was nothing like when the parents lived there. We weren't there to intervene in a crisis. We were just there to take some data and do one of our shows and see if something was still there, and it was, but nobody's being threatened there, nobody's being harmed. One thing that I have no idea if this is portrayed in the movie, but when Carolyn was there, what she did experience was a blue light flashing down from the chimney and going across the room and retracting immediately. It's kind of like a probe. Some people in haunted situations do experience this. The current owner did experience this as well, the blue light streaking across the room.
All right, well, why don't we take our final break of the program except for the news break, but it's our final spot that we have to take. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this. We'll take your calls, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. Back in just 30 seconds here on Spooky South Coast.
Not Boston. Your station for the South Coast. AM 1420 WBSM.
Light up summer with savings at Macy's 4th of July sale. Use your Macy's card or pass and take an extra 15 or 10% off. Dive into swimwear for her and him, 50% off. Hit the links with men's Izod golf apparel, 40% off. Save on kids' Levi's shorts, $21.99 and $22.99. And Martha Stewart outdoor dinnerware and surfwear, close out 60% off. Celebrate at Macy's. Savings off regular, original, and sale prices. Exclusions apply.
Your station for the South Coast. AM 1420 WBSM.
Based on a true story. In 1971, the Perrin family moved into their dream home.
It's gonna be great.
But they didn't know it was the site of a brutal murder in 1863 and countless horrors in the century that followed. What happened to the Perrins in that house was so disturbing, the family has refused to speak of it. Until now.
First day, we fell in love with the house.
I get my own room.
The owner says, do you and your family a favor, Roger. He says, keep the lights on in this house at night. A couple of days later, it came back to me and I had an idea that something was wrong.
From day one, there was a heaviness and there was a scariness.
Things began to happen in the house.
We started to see multiple spirits in the house.
See? It's standing right behind you.
because I was the youngest and the most vulnerable. I was approached more than anyone, and I actually had a relationship with that boy.
I think something bad happened to him. Follow me. This way.
I had gone to bed. I opened my eyes. The apparition started to come down to me.
Look what she made me do. Nancy?
From the director of Saw and Insidious.
We waited 30 years to tell our story. Because 30 years ago, the world was not prepared for this.
On July 19th, experience the terrifying truth. The Conjuring.
All right, welcome back into Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with science advisor Matt Moniz. That is the full official trailer for The Conjuring. Comes out July 19th, and it's about the case that we've been discussing tonight with our guest, Keith Johnson. He had mentioned Andrea Perron's website. It is houseofdarknesshouseoflight.com. That's where you can go and order the first 2 copies of the book. And I'm just looking here to see how much it is if people want to pick it up. You can get it from Amazon.com. You can pick it up. The Kindle version is $8.49. The hardcover version is $31.59, and the paperback version is $22.46. And of course, this is going to be a collector's item once the film comes out. So you want to make sure that you get them as quickly as you can. I'll probably grab it for the Kindle because I like to read the ebooks now. You should see my bookshelf, as I'm sure you have at home, Keith, and I know you have, Moniz. So there's the options to get it. You can get it all from the website, houseofdarknesshouseoflight.com, if you want to pick up the books and also find out more about the movie. There's more information there as well. And that was the actual parents that we heard in that clip sharing their own experiences. Mm-hmm. So it's rare when we have these cases that you can get the family that endured this out front and center. And the last movie I can think of where that happened was The Haunting in Connecticut.
Exactly.
Which, of course, was another Ed and Lorraine Warren case.
Right. Exactly.
And we talked a little bit off there about the casting for the film. And to me, it's very easy to try to find people who can portray paranormal investigators on film. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to get somebody that can portray the humanity that Ed and Lorraine Warren brought to these cases.
Right.
And that's what I think is so special about what they did. I mean, we all know and respect the work of a guy like Hans Holzer. Mm-hmm. Hans is a very hard guy to deal with. Mm-hmm. And I think he came across that way in a lot of his work. But with Ed and Lorraine, you have to kind of have that strength and that chemistry between them, because at least in my opinion, from what I know of their work, that was what was, as much as their faith protected them and everything, but I think it was that bond that they had with each other that also served as protection for them, much like you and Sandra have as well. Mm-hmm. And I think they nailed the casting. In the clips that I've seen, they've got it right.
And what's very interesting about the way Ed and Lorraine are portrayed in this is that there's, of course, they are the famed seekers of the supernatural. They are the famed experienced paranormal investigators, but there's also a vulnerability about them, the way they're portrayed. It's not that they go charging in and have all the answers. They're sometimes just as taken aback, and you see that vulnerability in how they actually literally hold on to each other as a couple and have to bond together, or else they would have fallen apart as a couple. And I'd say if I have one major regret about this, it's the movie coming out now. It's that Ed's not here. I mean, we do have Lorraine, of course. Mm-hmm. Thank God, Lorraine is still with us. But then again, before Ed took ill, according to Lorraine, this is one of the last things they talked about this story being presented. And to know Ed, I know Lorraine is the clairvoyant one, and Ed was the hardcore demonologist and investigator. But knowing Ed personally, he knew more than he let on. There was something, that he had within him that there was more to the man than he was telling, and I think he knew. I think he knew more than meets the eye, so to speak.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Now, I met Ed and Lorraine years ago, but I also know that Ed was a very accomplished painter. And did he not paint that house, make a painting of it?
You know, he did a great deal of painting. I don't recall if he actually did a painting of that house, but I've seen some of his artwork, some of his spirits. Some of his spirit paintings look uncannily like what was described in that house. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if his artwork was influenced by that case. I don't see how it could not be influenced.
Because I remember seeing a video of a lot of his work on their walls and stuff like that, and I vaguely recall seeing something similar to that house. It may not have been. I may just be projecting my own thoughts on this, but I could have sworn he did something in relationship to that house.
Yeah, I would say his artwork was definitely influenced by that, and I don't see how it could not have been influenced after that case, because like all of us who were involved, it did have a lifelong effect on him. Anybody who was involved with that case, it had a lifelong effect. And I know Tom D'Agostino had also written about that for Haunted Rhode Island. Yeah. He had interviewed me about that case, and there's a chapter in his book, Haunted Rhode Island, on the Perrin case. And you know, but until now, it has not been generally known as a household word, the Harrisville case, the Perrin case, the Conjuring, and now it's being known to the world at large.
Because it was a while ago that you first told me about this case and told me the information about it.
Oh yeah, I've always talked about it in every lecture I've talked about, because
and
you know, it's our original case. And
you could just tell, like, in you sharing just a little bit that you shared, you could tell then what an effect that it had on you. And I can only imagine the effect that it had on these children growing up. And you can see in that, I like to think that, you know, just as you have some discernment when it comes to demonic activity, I like to think I have some discernment when somebody's being, when they're playing for the cameras. I like to think that I can kind of call out somebody who's playing it up. And looking at their faces in that clip, I don't care how well they were directed, that's natural. You can see the look on their face and the reaction that they're having to just these memories and just talking about it again. Mm-hmm. That I can only imagine it's probably something that a lot of people who know these children now that they're adults probably have no idea anything about what happened to them.
Right. Well, they could not publicly talk about this for well over 30 years. And I could not announce that I was a demonologist for many years, so that I was into demonology. So in that way, I know it's like a very taboo subject.
But there's probably close friends that have no idea until they see them in this clip and say, "I can't believe that you went through that." Mm-hmm. It's just I can only imagine what it's like to have to endure that. And it's one thing when you go into a case, when you're a family and you have a haunting like this take place or activity like this take place, when you can almost say, all right, we have to own this a little bit because it's our fault. Mm-hmm. You know, you hear the stories about people playing around with Ouija boards. You hear stories about people, practicing dark arts, whatever it is that might invite these severely negative hauntings and potentially demonic hauntings to take place. But when it comes out of left field and, you're living your dream here, you're moving into this house that you love and you think that everything is going good in your life, and then wham, it just comes out of nowhere.
Right.
And that must be even more trying for you, is to have to kind of counsel the people that you are investigating their case as well, trying to let them know that there is light on the other side of this.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, Carl and I have been known for being investigating the demonic and the paranormal realm, and Sandra and I have been known for that for many years. But Donna Neufeld, it's affecting her in this way because she has not been known for this, and it's not something she could talk about for, here it is 4 decades later. Almost nobody that knows her knows that she was involved in this at all, let alone a case of this magnitude. And now it's just coming out that she was the case manager for this, and people are contacting her on Facebook. Donna, I never knew that you were involved in this. You were involved in something like this. You dealt with a case that drove the family practically to ruin, and how come you never told me? How could I tell people?
Right. How do you bring that up?
Right. You just don't do it over coffee.
And not only that, you're probably trying to bury a lot of those memories as best you can.
Right. Because she was seriously traumatized by it as well.
So it's one of those things that's going to just continue to have lingering effect on those who are involved in it, but also, maybe it will also shed some light for some other people who are dealing with something too, to say, okay, this happened to a real family. This is a real story. And now it makes what's going on in our house seem a little bit less bizarre, and they can be more open to seeking out the help that they need. And I know that we've discussed this in the past, and you said that these cases like this are extremely rare, but even demonic cases as a whole are still pretty rare.
Yes.
Even ones that don't reach this level of intensity. I mean, on average, how many would you say are probably coming across your desk each year?
Well, we get quite a few that claim to be demonic.
That are potentially, yeah.
But when you actually investigate, usually I know the family is going through a lot of trauma and everything. But if the family cooperates and kind of takes advice and everything, usually it's resolved fairly easily. It's like they're living with fear, and their fear can be conquered. Usually it's people are living with their own fear, and that's the main obstacle. It's not that they're being attacked. It's just that they're accustomed to being afraid of everything. But a truly demonic case is very, very rare, where people are actually being oppressed and attacked like this.
And I think too that there are other groups out there who are claiming to be investigating demonic cases every weekend.
Oh yeah.
And I guess that kind of shows, I don't want to say irresponsibility on their part, because I think that they're trying to do the right thing in terms of that, but they might just be misinformed as to how these cases are going. So it's something that we can definitely talk about this coming up in the next segment of the show. We're going to be here until 9:20 before the Red Sox pregame starts. So coming up in the next part of the program, if you have any questions or thoughts or concerns, anything that you want to ask our guest, Keith Johnson, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. We are here on a special time. Normally we are on 10 to midnight, but next week we'll also be in this time slot from 7 to 9:20 p.m. We'll be talking about black-eyed kids, which is another creepy phenomena. We'll be talking with David Weatherly about that, and then we'll be back in our regular 10 p.m. time slot the week following, when we'll be talking to Lara Calhoun about paranormal talent agencies. And we've got a number of topics coming up here in the coming weeks that are just... we're going to be exploring new avenues and going down different roads that even after 7.5 years of doing this program, we're still finding topics that we have to cover. We're still finding new angles to things that we have covered. And it just seems to never change. And when I look at somebody like Keith, who's had a long and productive career investigating the paranormal, I know that there's still so much that we're going to learn. Moniz, you've been investigating for about 70 years now. And and there's still things that you're experiencing. I mean, I go out to like Legend Trips events with you, and you're coming up to me and saying that you're experiencing something that you've never experienced before. So there's so much to learn. So hopefully you can continue to join with us each and every week as we learn about the paranormal. And that's what this show is about. We're not coming on here proclaiming to be experts. We're coming on here trying to find answers and trying to learn more for ourselves. And we're just taking you, the listener, along for the ride with us. If you are new to the show, if this is the first time you're hearing it, if you are computer savvy and you have an iPod or you have the ability to download podcasts from iTunes, you can get every show that we've ever done from iTunes free of charge. 7.5 years worth of archives. That's over 600 shows, I believe, at this point. And we've been downloaded over 3 million times now over the course of 7.5 years. So if you haven't heard them yet, you've got some catching up to do. And will be posting up last week's show tonight in addition to this week's show, because we fell a week behind with our Legend Trips event. So we do have the Nick Redfern show up there now for you to catch. That was from the week that we were at the Fort Taylor Legend Trips event. And then later on, I will be uploading last week's show with Jeff Holder and, of course, tonight's show with Keith Johnson. So if you miss any part of the show, you'll be able to get it all from there. And we've got Spooky TV back up this week. So fingers crossed, as long as remember to hit stop record and save it, we'll be able to post the video up to YouTube as well. So you'll be able to catch it there as well. We're going to take a break for the news right now. When we come back on the other side, more with our guest, Keith Johnson. Stick around. We'll be back with more here on Spooky Southcoast.
The station the South Coast turns to for local news, talk, weather, and sports. WBSM New Bedford, AM 1420, WBSM.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. New numbers out less than half an hour ago on the spectacular crash of an Asiana Airlines jetliner as it landed at the airport in San Francisco today. And it could have been much worse. Of the 307 people on board, 181 taken to hospitals, 49 in serious condition.
An additional 132 were transported
later on into the incident after being triaged, as they were the more minor to moderate casualties.
San Francisco Assistant Deputy Fire Chief Dale Carnes.
We've also accounted for 123 people here in the terminals of the airport that were uninjured and have remained in place. And at this time, we do have 2 confirmed DOA passengers on the aircraft.
Only 1 person unaccounted for and 2 deaths from a crash that shows a Boeing 777 jetliner with about the entire cabin burned up and widespread debris, the tail of the plane looking like it smashed into the edge of the runway near the rocks and water.
The way that it appears here, it's that this aircraft touched down short for some reason after a long flight from Seoul, and thankfully hit in a place where it was at least survivable for most folks.
ABC News military consultant Steve Gagnon, a pilot. One of the eyewitnesses, Danielle Wells.
I heard loud thunder, so I thought, and I turned around and all I see is this plane, one wing come down and it starts just rolling on the little runway thing.
The FBI says so far this San Francisco plane crash does not look terrorism related. Federal safety investigators are headed to the scene. SFO airport's got 2 runways back open. Syrian government troops have made headway into a city held for about a year by rebels, Homs, according to activists. An estimated 65,000 people have turned out for a sold-out concert benefiting Oklahoma tornado victims in Norman, one of the hardest hit areas, back in May. Oklahoma natives Toby Keith and Garth Brooks are part of the star-studded lineup. You're listening to ABC News.
You may have noticed doctors and nurses using the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer in hospitals and clinics. That's because it gives a fast, accurate reading with just a gentle forehead scan, backed by more than 40 published medical studies. It's a huge time saver, which makes it a great money saver too. Now, what you may not have noticed is that doctors and nurses use the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer at home too, for all the same reasons. So why not get one for your home? Pick one up today at Walgreens and other fine retailers.
Kim is in a rush and a large tree has fallen on her car. She needs to file a claim. Should she A, strap her claim forms to a caffeinated falcon, or B, file her claim on Geico.com? The correct answer is B. It's easy to quickly file a claim on Geico.com and set up an appointment with an adjuster. The caffeinated falcon would probably get disoriented and deliver the claim to some burger joint. Geico.com is much more efficient and doesn't have dangerous talons.
Geico. Wherever, whenever. Just a click away with our free mobile app.
A high-profile personnel change in Egypt. Pro-reform leader Mohammed El-Baradei has been named interim prime minister, according to an opposition leader. El-Baradei led the movement against former President Hosni Mubarak. He is a Nobel Peace Laureate and a former director of the UN nuclear watchdog. The BBC's Lise Doucette at Cairo's Tahrir Square.
Today, military and political leaders have been meeting, all except for the Muslim Brotherhood still refusing to take part in any dialogue. And the military has promised there will be a transition back to civilian rule, and that's what most Egyptians are waiting for now.
A lot of protests still going on in Egypt. More land for solar energy in the West.
The Interior Department has withdrawn more than 300,000 acres of public lands in Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, and Utah from new mining claims, taking another step toward establishing 17 new solar energy zones on government land in the West, barring claims that it says would impede development of renewable energy. The new zones are located near existing power transmission lines and were chosen because they had fewer environmental and cultural issues that could hold up green energy for years. They're looking to power 2.5 million homes. Joan Bennett, ABC News.
Repeating the top story, new numbers out on the San Francisco plane crash. 2 deaths, 1 unaccounted for, and about half of the rest of the 307 on board injured. This is ABC News.
Sometimes in life, you just get lucky. Like when you slide into a rock star parking spot or get a great table at that hot new restaurant. But luck won't protect you from identity theft. And that's why Identity Guard offers top-rated identity theft protection for less than $1 a day. Act now and get free protection for your kids, the latest targets for identity thieves. Get it now for less than $1 a day at identityguard.com/dollar. That's identityguard.com/dollar.
Chuck Severson, ABC News.
Out on the golf course, there are the obvious hazards. There's the pond, the bunker, the rough, the even rougher.
Yeah, put me down for an 8.
The giant maples. The row of houses out of bounds on the right. The angry flock of geese who've surrounded your ball. Even the occasional groundskeeper you had no clue was there. But if you think you found every possible hazard out there, think again. The hazard you missed could actually be a killer. It's the spot on your skin, the one that could be skin cancer. Fact is, if you're a man over 50, you're in a group most likely to develop skin cancer, including melanoma, the kind that kills one person every hour. 1 in 5 Americans is likely to develop a form of skin cancer during their lifetime. That's why your best shot is to check for a spot. It's easy. Follow through and check your skin. It could be the save of a lifetime. Go to spotskincancer.org to find out how. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
Welcome to spooky Southcoast.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does.
AM 1420. WBSM presents Spooky South Coast. Your hosts, Tim Weisberg and Matt Plaster.
All right, welcome back. The final 15 minutes or so of the program tonight. Tim Weisberg here, along with science advisor Matt Moniz, and our guest tonight is Keith Johnson. His website is nearparanormal.com, NEAR paranormal.com, and of course, Keith, you're on Facebook if people want to follow you there. Have you made the jump to Twitter yet?
Yes, we're on Twitter.
All right, excellent. What's your Twitter handle?
You'd have to ask Cinder about that.
I'm sure it's right on your website.
Everything.
Right on the website, so you can check that out. And of course, you can find all the episodes of Ghosts Are Near on there as well.
Oh yeah,
and as well as ordering both of your books.
Mm-hmm.
You working on another book, or?
Yes, I'm almost done with Paranormal Realities 3.
Nice.
And I'm working on a book on practical demonology. That's why people call me at 3 in the morning. They can just turn to my book.
Right, it saves you from having to get up. And but I will say, Keith, I mean, whenever I've had anybody that's contacted me with something that I feel is demonic, as you guys know, I try not to. Sooner or later, I think I'll have to go and experience one for myself, but I just don't feel ready yet, even after all this time of doing this. So I always refer to you if anything's going on. And usually what I do is I send Keith an email and I say, here's what's going on. Let me know what you think. And I'm kind of thinking, you can let me know if I need to get in touch with somebody else. Or it's never that. Keith's always like, give me their number. Let me get in touch with them. So it's even with your heavy caseload, you're still willing to help wherever you can, and we definitely appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Moniz, we were talking off the air there, but we mentioned that there's been a little bit of a UFO flap happening in our hometown over the last few days.
Swiss Beach last night at about 10 p.m. I had some people call and email me and and stuff. Object was seen flying over the beach heading towards downtown. One person actually even got a videotape of it. So if anybody else had seen something in around that time in Wareham, please inbox us at spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com.
Right, we would definitely love to see anything you might have or hear your reports and experiences. I'm hearing about this happening, and the first thing I'm thinking of, well, there's fireworks going off, Chinese lanterns, all these different things that are probably taking place as part of the Independence Day celebrations. But
I've got my curiosity too. But what set me off is that other people that I know that live in a different area talked about military jets going up. Military doesn't scramble jets for no reason.
Well,
it's expensive,
right? And I can tell you that there's been some pretty intriguing aerial activity over the past couple weeks.
Yes.
A lot of low-flying helicopters, and I know the difference between.
I've noticed that. Yeah.
I know the difference between a bogcopter and something else, and these are definitely something else. And I'm not saying they're flying bogcopter low either,
right.
But they're still flying pretty low. And you've been spotting it in Rhode Island?
Yeah, actually, I've been learning my team members, and my teamers, they'll get up at 10, 11 at night, and they'll just go down to Conimicut Point and set up their station there, and so yeah, we have been noticing these things, and not that there's anything for alarm, but we just like to keep on top and we do like to notice if something is flying around. We want to know, and we want to know why.
Absolutely. And we are experiencing the 66th anniversary of the Roswell crash.
Well, the original crash happened on the 2nd, found the day of the 3rd. The 4th, they basically, Mac Brazel celebrated the 4th of July with his family, reported it into the sheriff on the 5th. The sheriff in turn called the base in which they brought down a couple of them, one of them being the guy that collected all of the material and brought it back up to the base. And on the 7th, they reported it as being, a downed UFO, and then later retracted on the 8th.
Well, we had Jesse Marcel on a few years ago, and so 1947 was the date.
Yes.
So, by doing my math, it is 66.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I don't want to make myself stupid on the air because I'm terrible at math.
About 66 years. Yeah.
All right, we have a call on the line, and if you'd like to call in, 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. We do have about 9 minutes before the Red Sox are coming on. Good evening. You're on Spooky Southcoast with Keith Johnson. How are you?
Oh, hi. I was listening to your show driving home, and I didn't catch all of it. But I do want to say evil is pervasive in the world, and I just pray every day for the world, and I think that's an effective thing. I don't know your whole history on, when you go into a place that has a possession, but you said you say prayers, and that does help.
Yes. Keith certainly does.
He says prayers, yeah. Yep, and I pray every day for my family and my children in this world. And I look at demonic possession when you see the drug addiction, how it just changes, it ruins a person's soul. And some of this stuff, I feel there are evil forces that just are there in the world, and I think the good people on earth just prevent them from taking over.
Well, I think we need more people with your attitude and people that are praying for the good every day, and that's the best thing you can do is start the day with praying and praying for protection, especially putting on the armor of God, as it says in Ephesians chapter 6, and so that is excellent prayer protection, as well as Psalm 91. So, yes, you're absolutely right to pray for the good instead of focusing on the negative.
Nope, I do that every morning and every night, just for the world, and my friends do also. And we ask for protection for our children, for our homes. When I got married, we had our home blessed, and it's been a happy home. We've had, the tragedy, the losses and death and all that, but it's been a home of welcoming and of hope and hospitality. And if we all start in our little way, and that's my 2 cents worth.
Well, I think people have gotten away from that, and I think that's a good point. People should do that more, have their house blessed. I mean, it can't hurt when you move into a house. Just have it blessed in the name of God, or whatever your belief is. Just welcome in the positive light and the positive energy.
Right. One of my children did have has a home in another state that is rented now, but when he first moved in, he did feel a presence. He was telling me this, and just felt it. And I guess when he and his wife were away for the weekend, it was a two-family. The neighbors downstairs said, there's somebody up there. Like, we hear people up there, like, shuffling around. And they just prayed in their home, and they said it went away.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good, because you do need that dedication. You don't know what is there, even if nobody lived there before. I have a niece who just found an unopened, wrapped Ouija board in her basement, she told me about, and she doesn't know how it got there. And I said, could it have been the previous residents? And she said, we're the first family that's lived here. So, strange things do happen in this world. So it's always a good idea to have your house blessed.
Your prayers. What is the evilness of the Ouija board?
Well, it's not the board itself.
I remember it was a kid's game at one point.
It's not it's what it represents. It's the fact that people are using that to communicate and using your psyche. You're opening yourself up to, potentially dangerous forces. What the idea of the unopened one is in my niece's basement, I have no idea. Maybe that's a case for my friend John's office. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so thank you for explaining that.
Well, thank you so much for the call. Hopefully you'll tune in next week too.
Okay, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, yeah. And I just want to thank her and her friends for the prayers, because the world needs all that they can get. That's for sure. it seems like we hear more and more negative stories, more bad things happening in the world. There was, of course, that tragedy that happened earlier today with the plane crash in San Francisco, and
the train crash up in Canada.
There's just so many things happening that I think a little extra praying never hurt anybody. And again, as Keith said, blessing a house never hurt either. So might as well do it. You never know. Mm-hmm. Even if you're not of a particular belief system, and even if you have no beliefs, just don't let them know.
Right.
Just say, hey, can you come and bless my house? Don't tell them that. And I'm pretty sure that most clergymen will come and bless the house, and all you got to do is make them some macaroni and cheese, right?
Oh yeah, sure. Feed them well. Yes.
Oh, for the pastafarians.
Yeah, the pastafarians. Yeah.
There you go. And on that note, that about does it for tonight's show. We will be back next Saturday night from 7 p.m. until 9:20 when we'll be talking about Black-Eyed Kids with David Weatherly. But we want to thank tonight's guest, Keith Johnson, for coming down here and hanging out with us. It's always a great time. I don't know why we don't have you down here more often.
Well, we'll have to make it a more frequent occasion.
Especially since he's always willing to drive down here. Where, like that Belanger guy.
Yeah.
He wants to call in from home, and Balzano, he never wants to fly up from Florida to come in and join us.
Well, we got to book him a room.
Yeah, well, he can always crash in Moniz's house, the island of Dr. Moniz.
Sure.
You never come out the same way that you'd go in. And I'm pretty sure, Moniz is pretty open. Like, he'll let people stay on his couch whenever they want. All he asks for is a DNA sample, and he takes down to the cloning lab.
Actually, Lucky just stayed over the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, and I should have told you to tell him a happy belated birthday.
Ah, yes.
Although I did tell him happy birthday on Facebook. So.
And Leanne showed up, too, for the cookout. So.
Speaking of Lucky, just as an aside note, I know we only have about a minute left here, but I was recently re-listening to the War of the Worlds episode that we did. And just the performance that we got from Lucky and from Peter Robbins and from yourself, that was just a phenomenal episode. So if you're new to the show, that's one that you definitely want to check out. And as well as all the other shows that we've done over the years. Just go to our website, SpookySouthcoast.com. That's where you can find out everything about the program. You can also go to nearparanormal.com to find out everything about Keith and his work, NEAR paranormal.com. And we'll be back next Saturday night when we'll be talking about Black-Eyed Kids. I'll be back next Saturday morning from 6 to 9 when we'll be talking about all kinds of stuff. Whatever is on the thoughts and minds of the South Coast that early on a Saturday morning. And again, legendtrips.com is the website if you want to join us for our upcoming event at the USS Salem. That is happening on August 31st. Tickets are $99 for that. You get dinner, you get lectures, you get hours of guided investigation on a huge, immense ship there in Quincy Harbor. And it's going to be a night like you've never had before. So we'll definitely be talking more about that as we get closer to it. And that about does it for this week's show. So for Matt Moniz, for Matt Costa, for Chris Balzano, for Keith Johnson, I'm Tim Weisberg. We want you all to stay spooktacular.
I know supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does. All right, stay tuned for Red Sox baseball coming up here on